She laughed. Then the phone rang. She's gone, sir. The pot slammed to the floor, spilling red sauce. Zara Adeyemi had been taken from her penthouse by someone inside. Welcome back to Seoul and Sable Stories. If you're new here, you've landed at the worst and best possible moment. Worst because you've missed part 1. Best because the ending of this story is going to wreck you in ways you'll want to experience fresh. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and go watch part 1 first if you haven't. For those who stayed, you already know. You knew Shin Dongwon wasn't working alone. You felt it. You were right. The call came to Zara's phone at 6:47 a.m., 3 days after Shin Dongwon's arrest. She was alone in the penthouse. Hyunwoo had left early for a board meeting, the first normal business obligation he'd kept in weeks. Things had been quiet. Carefully, cautiously quiet. The kind of quiet that made Zara nervous because she'd grown up in Lagos and she knew the difference between peace and the pause before something. The number was Adi's clinic. Her heart lifted. She answered fast. Zara. The voice was not Adi's doctor. It was a woman's voice, composed, almost warm, which was somehow worse than cold. I think it's time we met properly. I've been watching you for some time now. I was impressed by what you did with the hospital records. Genuinely. Who is this? Someone who knew Park Soo-won better than his brother did. Someone who has been waiting for exactly the right moment. A pause, deliberate. Adi's 8 a.m. infusion has been put on hold. There's a cafe at the bottom of your building. Come alone. Come now. And Zara, don't tell Hyunwoo. Not because I'll hurt her if you do. Because if you tell him, he will come, and I will say things in front of him that cannot be unsaid. Things about his brother that will break him. You're a nurse. You know some wounds don't heal. The line went dead. Zara stood in the kitchen for 60 seconds. Exactly 60, she counted, the way she counted during difficult procedures, using time as an anchor. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She didn't panic. She didn't reach for her phone to call Hyunwoo. She thought. The woman knew about Adi's. Knew the infusion schedule. Knew the cafe at the bottom of the building. Had been watching. But she had called Zara's phone, not approached her directly. Had offered information, things about Soo-won, as leverage rather than a weapon. That was the behavior of someone who wanted a conversation. Someone who needed something that only Zara could provide. People who wanted you simply dead didn't negotiate. She grabbed her bag. Left a single object on the kitchen counter where Hyunwoo would find it immediately when he returned, her hospital lanyard, the one she'd taken off the night he first put her in his car. The one he'd seen her wear every day since. He would know. He would come. She just needed time first. The cafe was nearly empty. The woman was already there, mid-50s, beautiful in the way of someone who had decided long ago that beauty was a tool and maintained it accordingly. Dressed simply. No jewelry except a single ring on her right hand. The kind of woman who didn't need to perform power because she had long since stopped performing anything. Zara recognized her. Not from memory. From photographs, the ones in Hyunwoo's private files, the ones Jisoo had shown her during the Shin Dong-won investigation. A name that had appeared once, flagged and then cleared. Deemed not relevant. Han Myung. Soo-won's former mentor. The woman who had introduced the younger Park brother to the world of legitimate finance, who had guided his early career, who had, according to those files, been like a second mother to him. Zara sat down across from her without being invited to. Release my sister's treatment, she said. Now. Before you say anything else. Han Myung studied her. Then she made a call, said 2 words into it, and hung up. Done. Her 8 a.m. proceeds as scheduled. She set her phone face down on the table. I wanted to see what kind of woman you are before I told you what I know. You came alone. You sat without being asked. You led with your sister, not with fear. She nodded once. Soo-won would have liked you. Something cold moved through Zara's chest. You knew him. He came to me 3 weeks before he died. He'd found something in the Baek faction's financial records, something Shin Dong-won had buried very carefully. A channel that was being used not just to fund operations, but to funnel money to people who wanted Hyunwoo removed. Not just from power. Removed. Zara went very still. Soo-won came to me because he trusted me. He asked me to hold the evidence. to keep it safe while he decided what to do. Han Myung's voice didn't break, but something behind her eyes did, briefly controlled. I told him to be careful. He said he would be. He wasn't careful enough. You have the evidence. I have everything. Shin Dong-won was the instrument. The money, the motive, the people who wanted Hyunwoo gone. It goes higher than Shin. Higher than anyone he's looked at. She slid a small drive across the table. Soo-won asked me to protect it. He didn't ask me to deliver it. That part I'm choosing myself. Then why me? Why not go directly to Hyunwoo? Han Myung looked at her for a long moment. Because Hyunwoo will act the moment he sees this. He will burn everything to the ground, which is exactly what the people on that drive are counting on. They want him to move in anger. An angry man makes mistakes. An angry man becomes the story instead of the evidence. She folded her hands on the table. But a careful woman who spent 11 months invisible in this city, who took down Shin Dong-won from inside a hospital record system, she might know how to deliver this in a way that doesn't give them what they're waiting for. Zara looked at the drive. She thought about Hyunwoo in the kitchen, frowning at the rice, trying so hard at something small because he wanted her to feel at home. She thought about what it would do to him to know the full shape of it, not just his brother's death, but the network behind it, the size of it, the fact that it had been planned long before Soo-won walked into that hospital. She thought about what Han Myung had said. An angry man becomes the story instead of the evidence. Give me 48 hours, Zara said. You have 36. After that, the people on that drive will know it exists and you won't be safe regardless. Zara pocketed the drive. Stood. One more thing, Han Myung said. Soo-won left something else with me. For Hyunwoo. I've been waiting for the right moment to pass it along. She set an envelope on the table. Sealed. Hyunwoo's name on the front in handwriting Zara had never seen but recognized instinctively as belonging to someone warm. He wrote it 2 weeks before he died. He said, in case things go wrong, make sure my brother knows I wasn't afraid. Make sure he knows I was proud of him. Zara picked up the envelope. She didn't trust herself to speak. So she nodded once and walked out. Hyunwoo was in the lobby when she stepped off the elevator. He'd found the lanyard. Of course he had. His face was not the face she'd seen in the hospital corridor the night they met, all controlled fury and cold assessment. This was something rawer. The face of a man who had lost too many people and felt the specific, particular terror of almost losing one more. She crossed the lobby and walked straight into him. Her arms went around his waist. She pressed her face against his chest and breathed him in and let herself, for 30 seconds, simply be held. His arms came around her tight. Too tight. Then looser, deliberate as he regulated himself back down. Tell me, he said into her hair. Not a command. A request. I will, she said. All of it. But I need you to listen without moving until I'm finished. Can you do that? A pause. She felt the tension in his body, the instinct to act warring with the trust she was asking for. Yes, he said. They went upstairs. She told him everything. Han Myung, the drive, the network above Shin Dong-won, the 36-hour window. She watched his face and she saw it all move through him, the fury, the grief, the cold calculation, and underneath everything, the grief again, the specific shape of losing a brother. She saved the envelope for last. She set it on the table between them and said nothing. His name in his brother's handwriting. Hyunwoo looked at it for a long time. Then he picked it up and left the room. She didn't follow. She made tea. She sat at the kitchen counter and stared out at Seoul and gave him the privacy that grief required. Comment right now if your heart is in pieces, because this is the moment the whole story has been building to. And we're not done yet. Subscribe if you haven't, because what happens next is what separates this story from every other one. He came back 40 minutes later. His eyes were red. He sat across from her and put his hands flat on the table and looked at them. He said he was proud of me, Hyunwoo said. His voice was rough. Stripped. He said he was never afraid of me. That he knew who I was under all of it. He stopped. Swallowed. I spent 15 years worrying that the empire had consumed me so completely that the people I loved could only see the chairman, not the brother. Zara reached across the table and covered his hands with hers. Said nothing. He saw me, Hyunwoo said. Even at the end. He saw me. He loved you, Zara said simply. You were always worth seeing. The silence that followed was not the silence of grief. It was something else, the silence of a weight being set down. The particular quiet of a man who has been carrying something alone for so long he had forgotten it was possible to put it anywhere. After a long moment, Hyunwoo straightened. His eyes cleared. The chairman returned, but different this time. Not armored against feeling. Just decided. Show me the drive, he said. And tell me your plan. Because Han Myung was right. I want to burn everything down, and that's exactly what they're waiting for. He looked at her. So tell me what you would do instead. Zara had spent the walk back from the cafe thinking about exactly this. We don't go after the network directly. We give the evidence to the prosecution, all of it, structured, sourced, documented, and we do it through a journalist. Someone with international reach. We make the story public before they can suppress it, and we do it in a way that names names and shows the full shape of what they built. She paused. They wanted you to move in anger because an angry mafia chairman makes a better headline than a documented financial conspiracy. We deny them that headline. You want me to do nothing. I want you to do the hardest thing a man like you has ever done, she said. I want you to trust the law. He looked at her for a long time. My whole life I've operated outside the law because the law could be bought. Then we make it impossible to buy. We make it too visible. Too public. She leaned forward. Suwon trusted Han Myung with the evidence because he knew the moment it became a secret weapon in your hands, people would die. He didn't want more people to die. He wanted it to end. Hyunwoo was quiet for a very long time. Then, how long will it take? 24 hours to structure the package. 12 to get it to the right journalist. The story breaks in 36. Before our window closes. He nodded once. Tell me what you need. They worked through the night. It was the strangest 24 hours Zara had ever spent, sitting beside the most feared man in Seoul's underworld, building a prosecution file like they were preparing a medical case. Methodical. Sourced. Irrefutable. Hyunwoo knew which documents to pull, which financial threads led where, which names connected to which structures. Zara knew how to organize information so it told a story that couldn't be argued with. At 3 a.m. she made coffee. At 4 a.m. he made her eat something. At 5 a.m. they had something that looked, for the first time, like justice instead of just revenge. It's enough, Zara said, reviewing the final package. It's more than enough. Hyunwoo leaned back in his chair and looked at the ceiling. I have never done anything this way before, he said. I know. It feels, he paused, searching for the word. Incomplete. It feels incomplete because no one is bleeding, Zara said. That's not incompleteness. That's what it feels like to do something clean. He turned his head and looked at her. In the early morning gray of the penthouse, tired, his shirt sleeves rolled up, the chairman stripped away, he looked like the boy who had inherited an empire at 19 and never had anyone to carry it with. You changed me, he said. Not accusatory. Not even surprised. Just true. You let yourself be changed, she said. That's different. The journalist was contacted at 6 a.m. The package was delivered through a secure channel Jisoo arranged. The story broke at 2 p.m. the following day, not just in Seoul, but internationally. 3 languages simultaneously. Financial records, names. Transaction trails, the full architecture of what had been built in the shadows of the Baek faction for 7 years. By evening, 4 arrests had been made. 2 more followed the next morning. The network that had ordered Suwon's death began to collapse the way these things always collapse when the light hits them fast, completely, with a sound like something that had never been as solid as it believed. Hyunwoo watched it from the penthouse window. Zara stood beside him. Is it over? She asked. This part, he said. The rest takes time. She knew he didn't only mean the legal proceedings. 3 days later, Adiz arrived at Incheon Airport. Zara had been awake since 4 a.m. Hyunwoo had offered to come with her to the airport, and she'd said no, not because she didn't want him there, but because she needed to receive her sister alone first. Some reunions were private. Some things belonged only to the people who had survived them together. Adiz came through arrivals in a wheelchair, protocol, not necessity, She informed the airport staff loudly, with her natural hair wrapped in orange and gold, wearing a hospital bracelet on one wrist and a beaded bracelet on the other, looking at Seoul through the arrival's glass with the expression of someone deciding whether a place was worth her attention. She was 14 and furious, and the most alive person Zara had ever seen. When she spotted Zara, she stood up from the wheelchair before anyone could stop her and walked the last 20 feet on her own. They held each other in the middle of Incheon Airport for a long time. Around them, Seoul moved and rushed and continued being itself. Neither of them noticed. "You lost weight," Adiz said into her shoulder. "You're taller," Zara said. "I told you I would be." She pulled back and looked at her sister with the direct, assessing gaze of someone who had spent too much time in hospital rooms reading people. "You look different." "Different how?" "Rested. But also scared." Adiz tilted her head. "Who is he?" Zara laughed. The sound surprised her, full, unguarded, the laugh of someone who had come back to themselves. "How do you know it's a he?" "Because you only look scared like that over things you actually want," Adiz said, completely certain. "So, who is he?" They met Hyunwoo at the penthouse. He was in the kitchen. There was a pot on the stove. The smell told Zara everything before she rounded the corner. He had, against all odds, found the right tomatoes. Adiz walked in ahead of her, looked at the pot, looked at Hyunwoo, looked back at the pot. "You're attempting jollof," she said. Not a question. The tone of a girl who had grown up in Lagos and had opinions. "Third attempt," Hyunwoo said. He was, to his credit, not visibly intimidated by a 14-year-old. "I'm told the previous 2 were failures." They were, Zara confirmed. Adiz walked to the stove, lifted the lid, smelled it, tasted from the wooden spoon with the authority of someone who had earned it, and was quiet for a moment. "The tomatoes are right this time," she said finally. She looked at Hyunwoo. "But you over-seasoned at the end. You got nervous." "I did," he admitted. "Why?" He glanced at Zara. "Brief. Honest. I wanted it to be right for you." Adiz studied him for a long moment with those direct, assessing eyes. Then she handed him the wooden spoon. "Fix the seasoning and I'll teach you the rest," she said. "My sister can't keep correcting you forever. She has enough to do." Hyunwoo took the spoon. And Park Hyunwoo, feared across 3 syndicates and 2 continents, chairman of the Baek Mountain Group, the man who had signed away his empire without blinking for the woman he loved, stood in his own kitchen and took instruction from a 14-year-old girl from Surulere, Lagos. And he did it gladly. Zara stood in the doorway and watched them, this impossible, improbable thing, her sister, her world, standing beside the man who had become her home, and felt something she hadn't felt in so long she'd forgotten its name. Whole. She was whole. Later, after dinner, jollof rice, finally right, Adiz announced with the gravity of a verdict. Hyunwoo found Zara on the balcony. Seoul spread below them, 32 floors of glittering ordinary life. People going home. People arriving. The city continuing its business of being enormous and indifferent and somehow, occasionally, generous. He stood beside her. Close enough that his shoulder touched hers. "She's going to be all right," he said. Not a question. "She is," Zara said. "She's been all right. She's always been tougher than me." "I don't think that's true. You haven't known her long enough." "I've known you long enough." He turned toward her. The city glowed at his back. In the half-light he looked like what he actually was, not the legend, not the chairman, not the ghost story Seoul told itself. Just a man who had learned, late and hard and at great cost, that the most dangerous thing he would ever do was let someone matter to him. And had chosen to do it anyway. "I want to ask you something," he said. "Ask." "Stay. Not because it's safe here. Not because I can protect you, I can't promise that, this world doesn't promise that. Stay because this is yours now too if you want it. This city. This life. Me." He paused. "I am asking. Not telling." Zara looked at him for a long time. She thought about Lagos. About her mother who had given everything and kept nothing. About 11 months of being invisible in a city that didn't know what to do with her. About a dead man's phone and a warehouse fire, and a drive full of secrets, and a letter that had made the most powerful man she'd ever met cry quietly in an empty room. She thought about jollof rice and the Han River at 2 a.m. and a 14-year-old girl handing a Mafia chairman a wooden spoon and telling him to pay attention. She thought about what her mother had never been given: someone who showed up, stayed, tried. Someone who made room. "I'm already staying," she said. "I decided that before you asked." He kissed her then, and Seoul did what cities do: kept moving, kept glittering, kept being entirely unaware of the small, enormous, ordinary miracle happening 32 floors above its streets. Two people choosing each other. Fully. Finally. With all the fire and cost and beauty that choosing requires. The jollof was perfect. The sister was safe. The secrets were in the light where they belonged. And Zara Adeyemi, who had come to Seoul to save someone she loved and somehow, along the way, allowed herself to be found, stood on a balcony above a city that had tried to make her invisible. And was seen. Completely. At last. And that's the end of Bound by Blood and Blossoms. And if this story found something in you, if Zara and Hyunwoo felt real, if you found yourself holding your breath at a jollof rice pot in a penthouse kitchen, then you already know this family is where you belong. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling us which moment broke you open. Share this with someone who needs a love story that doesn't apologize for being complicated, dangerous, and completely worth it. Seoul and Sable Stories. We don't do safe love here. We do the kind that changes you.